for being cognisant of time. I will go to Senator McDonald. I know she has a deep interest in this topic, so I might just give the call briefly to Senator McDonald and then I'll go to you, Senator Roberts.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question on that, given that I'm chairing the Senate inquiry into alternate plant-based proteins. One of the topics that's been explored in that inquiry, and you've now prompted me, we should ask CSIRO to come along and give evidence, is around some of the claims being made by companies like Food Frontiers and V2, is that plant-based proteins are more sustainable, or they should be eaten in preference to animal-based proteins because they're better for the environment. And they're making claims that the animals industry is saying are unfounded. Given CSIRO's putting considerable amounts of money into developing these sciences, which is a separate issue, developing manufactured meat or manufactured proteins, but would you agree with that statement that plant-based proteins are healthier for the planet than animal-based meats?
Oh, Senator, I think that depends, but could I just correct one?
Well, it depends on what, because that is correct. Exactly kind of my question.
But you said considerable funds. Senator, just for perspective, we invest more than $200 million a year in traditional agriculture and food, and less than 4% of that goes to these alternative proteins. So it's kind of the tail wagging the dog here. And the reason we do it, Senator, is because of the growing market opportunity to the north of us for vegans and vegetarians. So again, it's hard for me to answer your other question because I look at these markets as complementary, not competitive, because we know that vegans and vegetarians don't eat meat. So how do we get to that market? We create new products that attract that market, and that should be additive to our exports, not competitive.
I don't disagree with you, and so I have no problem with producing different food sources for people who want to eat differently, choose to eat differently. That is not the issue I'm trying to explore. What I'm trying to explore is that we have plant-based proteins marketing themselves, calling themselves by animal names, by putting pictures of animals on the front of products. Supermarkets then stocking them on supermarket shelves, intermingling them with the two products. And then when you have a product that has a picture of a chook, calls itself chicken, and then says that this is uses raising claims that says that this is more sustainable for the planet, I'm just interested to see if that's something that the CSIRO, who has a long history of being based in science and facts and data, would then start buying into some unproven claims like that. And that's where the basis of the inquiry came from. It's not to have a go at people who want to eat differently, but it's just about making sure that you don't muddy the water with marketing claims that are unproven.
No, Senator, you're right. You're quite right. And we'd never want to be part of anything that was misleading the public in that way. I don't believe we are, and we certainly wouldn't want to be. The reason it's hard to answer your question is one of the areas we're worried about in the decarbonisation of Australia's economy is agriculture. And methane is a big greenhouse gas emitter, and it's particularly hard to reduce that. So we focused a lot of resources on inventing a product called Future Feed, which was recently backed by Woolworths and others, which virtually eliminates the methane emissions from cattle. And that was very much targeted at helping the cattle industry in Australia be more sustainable. Globally, this is a big problem, and that's why it's hard to answer your question, because if I think without Future Feed, I think you would have an argument, that argument at least, to say that plants are more sustainable from a carbon perspective than cattle. But Future Feed, we created it to try and change that, and it has changed that. It is changing that. So, Senator, I think the reason you have to take each one of those questions on: are you talking about emissions? Are you talking about recycling? Are you talking about human health? And depending on which dimension and which product, you would get different answers.
Well, and I would say the same thing back to you. It's not as if Australia's land types are easily interchangeable between animal production and cropping. So it seems a brave new world to say we're not going to have animal food, animal proteins, because we're going to convert all of that land into crops, which is patently a ridiculous thing to think or say. And so that's the implication, I think, in some of these marketing claims on these companies, is that the two land uses are equally interchangeable. And of course, that's not correct.
I think you're spot on, Senator, and we did look at that also. The other issue, of course, is the world's population is growing to almost 10 billion by 2050, along with the carbon reduction that the world is trying to do. And it's unlikely that given current capabilities, it's unlikely we can feed all those people unless we invent some new ways of producing food in both the animal space and in the plant space.
And reducing food waste.
Absolutely, Senator.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator McGrath. Senator Roberts, thank you for being so patient.